All research starts with a research question. Without a research question, you cannot have research. So, what is a research question? There are four components that we will look at today. A research question is one. A research question has to be researchable. Two, it must actually be a question. Three, a research question contributes to theory and practice. And four, it's got to be focused and specific. So those are the four aspects that we'll look at today. And when you look at your research question, you will be asking yourself these four things. So, one, researchable. Here's an example of a question that is not researchable. How can we solve absenteeism in TVT? How are you going to find that out? How are you going to find out how we can solve absenteeism? How are you going to show us that your solution works? You can ask a lot of people, in which case your question would be, what do teachers think are the solutions to absenteeism? But that isn't a solution. That doesn't tell us how you're going to solve absenteeism. It will tell you how teachers think we can solve absenteeism. So you need to rephrase that question. And we can ask teachers what they think the causes of research of absenteeism are. What is the best way of doing well? How will you know what is best? So you need to think about, you need to find a way of saying, I will compare two ways of doing well. Does way X compare better to way Y? Right? Well, by the way, is work integrated learning. And so all these best ways and finding best practice and that kind of stuff, you don't know. And you cannot research, by the way, you cannot research something that is going to happen in the future. You can only research something that has already happened, that you can already observe. It needs to be researchable. Number two, your research question. It's researchable. Is it a question? Is it researchable? Is it a question? Or is it an answer? How does e-learning, what not to do, how does e-learning solve the problem of COVID-19? You're already giving the answer. You're saying that e-learning is a solution to COVID-19. You don't know that. You're already giving the answer before you have asked the question. You first need to ask yourself the question is, what contribution can e-learning make? But even that is not a full question yet. You need to be asking yourself, what assumptions am I making in the question itself? Am I making assumptions? And can I turn my assumptions, where I've already said this is the answer, can I turn my answer into a question? So, for example, how does e-learning solve the problem of COVID? How have teachers used e-learning during the COVID period? Even that won't give you the answer to the question. What has been the impact of e-learning on teaching practice during the COVID period, or of e-learning on, but you're leaving it open, on e-learning, on learning. But you're leaving the question open. You're asking a question. You're not preaching. You're not selling anything. Right? You're not a sales rep. You are a researcher. You're trying to find out what people actually think, and what is the case on the ground. Right? You're not a sales rep. You're not preaching. You're not teaching. You are researching. Number three. So it's researchable. It's a question. Anybody remember what the third criterion was? The third criterion is that when you're doing research, you're contributing to theory. Now, oftentimes we ask questions like, that want to solve practical problems. What is the number one problem in colleges? We all know it's resources. That doesn't contribute to any theory. And we need to have a conversation about what exactly is theory. But it needs to contribute to a broader conversation of how we understand the phenomenon that you're looking at. And the phenomenon is what is the main thing that you're looking at. So if you're looking at absenteeism, how does it contribute to our understanding as human beings of what absenteeism is? We're not necessarily trying to solve some problem. But once you understand the problem, hopefully it will contribute to the solution, but that is not your main purpose as a researcher. Your main purpose as a researcher is to help us understand the problems and then handing that over and saying, these are the implications of what I'm saying for practice. But your implications for practice comes last. What is your contribution to theory, to how we understand it? What can you tell the literature? All right. So, how should TVET respond to the fourth industrial revolution? We're all looking for that stuff, and people are all looking. That's also one of those questions where it's, the question is the answer. We don't know, but you can't ask that question. And I'll come back to that. Is how can we begin to ask that particular question differently? What is the throughput rate? There's another example of a question that doesn't contribute to theory. What is the throughput rate at TVET colleges? Yeah, fascinating. So we have a number. It's 2%, it's 4%, it's 16%. How have you contributed to theory? You've given theory a number. What contribution are you making to how we understand throughput rates? That question, it may be a very valid question, maybe a sub-question of your bigger problem, but your problem itself must have some level of abstraction. There must be some way in which you can say there was some thinking on the part of the researcher in order to answer this question. That question is too narrow. It's a low-level question. And then finally, your question needs to be focused and specific. You are not, with your research, going to solve the problems of the whole world. Sorry. It's going to be focused. It's going to be specific. It's going to be, get number one, is going to be researchable. So you need to narrow it down. Which population are you speaking about? Is this how TVET all over the world should respond to the fourth industrial revolution? Or is this how TVET should respond to the fourth? What aspect of the fourth industrial revolution is big? So what are the uses of social media? There are a lot of different social media. What social media specifically are you going to be looking at? Why do students fail? Why do students fail? What? What is fail? What specific aspect of failing are you speaking about? Which students are you speaking about? Why do native students fail? Why do NCV students fail? Why do TVET students fail? Which particular population are you beginning to speak about? So you're getting some kind of focus. What does fail mean? Which subjects are they failing? So, or are you going to research all the subjects? So you have a very specific focus, and your research needs to show that your focus is very specific.